Hey, Godfather of Anxiety here. I just wanted to do a short video about 5 subtle changes that can signal a potential relapse. A lot of the times when we're recovering from anxiety spectrum disorders, it's not linear. In a perfect world, we would want, whether it's medication or therapy or whatever we're doing, we would want to start doing that and then everything clears up and we never have to deal with it again. But that's just not the truth. And I'd be lying to you guys if I said that. So what's better and what's really important, and I've been dealing with this for almost 22 years now, so I know this, and I'm sure a lot of you who've dealt with it a long time know this as well. But one of the most important things you can do is learn yourself. Learn yourself really well. And that's what a lot of these subtle changes are going to be about. You're going to have to know what is normal for you in order to be able to spot subtle changes that occur. So, like I've said in other videos, we need to know our triggers, we need to know our routines, our patterns, and we need to know, what types of things really will cause stress. And also we need to pay attention to external stress. But anyways, these are going to be the more subtle things that, if you're paying attention, you'll notice these things. And every time I've had 2 relapses, and every time they've been preceded by some of these subtle changes that I'm going to mention. The first that I'm going to mention is mood changes. And this doesn't have to be some gigantic Jekyll and Hyde change of mood. What it can be is it can be a quicker temper. It can be, a lower frustration tolerance. Something I notice is, yes, I get a quicker temper. And I also notice, little things start to annoy me more. Traffic. When I'm doing well, I'm pretty mellow when I drive. But when my anxiety is starting to spike, people drive too slow, people cut, all of those things start to happen. So pay attention to your moods. If somebody says, boy, why are you so moody lately? And maybe we haven't noticed it ourselves. Maybe that would be a good sign to start paying attention to see if maybe, that's indicative of, increased stress levels or increased anxiety levels. Also, some of these things tie right into depression as well. A lot of the times before you go into a deep clinical depression, you'll have the same things that you want to pay attention to. Mood changes is a big one, obviously, with depression. The next one, and this is something I have noticed every time, and it really preceded my initial diagnosis to a severe degree. But this is an inability to relax. And the way I can explain it to people maybe is, maybe if you've been away from your house or you worked all day, when you finally get everything done that you have to get done, and you sit down either on the couch or in your recliner or whatever it is, and you go, you can exhale. You feel, all right, I can actually relax a little now. Maybe only for a short time, but I can let that breath out. Well, if you find that you're not getting that feeling, but instead you keep feeling almost like a feeling like there's something more you have to do, or it's not finished, you just can't exhale. You just don't get that feeling where you're able to relax. This has been a big one for me. This was constant for about 5 months before my initial diagnosis 22 years ago. It was, I couldn't relax. I even remember telling my wife, I just can't relax. And so pay attention to this. If you notice that you can't, get settled in and calm down after you've accomplished everything you needed to for that day, that's a good sign to take a look at, where your stress level's at. and or where your level of depression might be at as well. The next thing, I'm going to include 3 things in this subtle change. Guys, I always talk to you about the big 3. You're never going to get better from anxiety without these 3 things being somewhat in order. And especially the first one, sleep, changes in sleep, exercise, and eating habits, but especially changes in sleep. If all of a sudden you're noticing you can't sleep as long, or you want to sleep a lot longer, these are big red flags that anxiety is up, potential depression is coming on. If you notice that you either can't stay asleep after you fall asleep, any type of interruption or deviation from getting the 7 to 9 hours of sleep that we need as human beings every night, any deviation from this is a big red flag that our anxiety could be up and we could be potentially headed toward a relapse. Same thing with exercise. If you find yourself really struggling with the idea of exercise, or if all of a sudden when it comes to eating, you just constantly are craving comfort foods, high carbohydrate, high refined sugar, things that are like Band-Aids that, they soothe you. If you start really craving those, that can be an indication that your stress is up. These are things that we do to self-soothe to help mitigate our external stress, right? So these 3 things, pay close attention. You don't want these things to get out of whack. Any one of these 3 things, if they start to get out of whack, that means you have to make some adjustments. The next thing I'm going to mention is avoidance behaviors. And in particular, you want to pay attention to social avoidance. So what you want to do, like for me, one of my big things that I can pay attention to as far as, starting to avoid things is driving. If all of a sudden I more frequently would say, do you want to drive, to my wife, or if I'm noticing that I'm deciding not to do something because I just don't feel like driving, that's a sign to me. Your stress is up. You have to, and when you notice these subtle changes, and this is why I made the video, when you notice these subtle changes, it gives you an opportunity before you get to a full-blown relapse to make the necessary adjustments that you need to make in order to avoid, basically having to start over from scratch, or at least really having to almost feel like you have to start over again. So let's see, that's 4 that I've mentioned so far. And avoidance behaviors, guys, just to put a bow on that, whatever's really hard for you that you've been able to overcome since you've started to get treatment. For me, driving was a big one. For you, it might be social. It might be talking to somebody. Might be, being able to communicate the way we should at work. It could be a variety of any of these things that really stress us out, that trigger us. If we start to do things to avoid them, there's your red flag that you need to get on top of your stress management so to avoid a potential relapse. And finally, and this is a big one too, and boy, this was huge before I was initially diagnosed, an inability to concentrate or focus. And, what'll happen is it can be because of that inability to relax that you feel this way, or maybe you're starting to have some racing thoughts, some increased what-if thinking, or it can just be that you feel like you don't have the mental energy to do any deep thinking. And for me, I hate this. I hate this symptom as bad as any symptom that you get from anxiety, because, really, what are we if we can't think deeply? feeling deeply is important, but so is thinking deeply. That's what's going to precede having deep feelings, is that ability to contemplate, the future, important things, art, music, whatever it might be. You need your mind in order to be able to focus or concentrate and enjoy all the wonderful things there is to learn about, in our lives. And if you notice that, man, it's really hard to get the mental energy to finish maybe a task at work, or maybe, you normally like to read before you go to bed, and you start reading, and in a few sentences in, you're just like, nah, I just don't have it. I can't get this is a huge red flag that your anxiety is up and that you very well could be headed towards a potential relapse. So those are the 5 things. They're subtle, but if you guys get to learn yourselves, learn your triggers, learn how you process stress, you'll be able to pay attention and notice when these things start to get out of whack, or when you start to get off kilter with these things. So obviously, if you have this happen to you, where you start to notice these things, the things that you can do, obviously some of them are going to be lifestyle. Some of them are going to be external stress. You definitely want to talk to your mental health professional about this. It could even be that you need an adjustment in your medication. But this is why I always tell you guys to get with a mental health professional, because when you start feeling this way, that's the person you can tell, and they'll have an idea on what to do. I mean, it could be as simple as concentrating on breathing techniques to get your stress, to get yourself to be able to relax. And definitely, and I'm going to harp on this on just basically all my videos. Sleep, guys. If your sleep maybe it's been something beyond your control. Maybe it's, life has just been hard and you haven't been able to, work has been busy, family life has been busy, and it's interfered with your sleep. Okay, that can happen. But you are not going to be of any use to your family or anyone else if you have a full-blown relapse. So you need to take the time to get your sleep in order. I promise you, that is one of the hugest things that is going to precede a relapse, is interference with sleep. So make sure that you are getting your sleep, and if you have to work something out with your mental health professional, or if you have to adjust your schedule, because if it could be maybe you've bit off more than you can chew, then maybe just throttle it down a little. You'd rather throttle it down a little now, maybe do a little less now, than have the walls cave in and have you back in the fetal position having panic attacks and not being able to deal with anything. So that's why I made the video, and that's about where I want to end this. Guys, pay attention. Pay attention to yourselves. Get to know yourselves. Pay attention to the subtle things that indicate an increased stress, or potentially that would precede clinical depression, and get on top of these things so that they don't become something that really interferes with our lives. Thank you guys so much for the engagement of the channel. It's been great. I appreciate all the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Anybody you know who's going through any of these things, whether it's any of the anxiety spectrum disorders or depression, have them take a look at the channel. And, hopefully that'll lead them to get the treatment they need, or at least to understand what's going on and to let them know that they're not alone. So thanks so much. And until my next video, take care.